to the Two Old Guys Talking podcast. Today, the two old guys interview retired businessman Byron Starr about running huge dance conventions.
How are you doing, Byron?
That's great, thanks. Oh, John, nice to meet you on the internet. Yes, on Zoom.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
Today, we get to interview retired businessman Byron Starr. Byron ran some of the largest dance conventions in Canada. He is personally skilled in many styles of dance, and he owned and operated a dance floor business for many years. He is the father of three, and when things get back to normal, he plans on attending dance conventions around North America. Byron, welcome to Two Old Guys Talking.
Great to be here.
Because I don't know anything about dance at all. So You two guys are talking about it like it's old hat. When you guys are talking about dance, what are you talking about? Like what style?
Yeah, we're talking about West Coast swing, ballroom, Latin, and country.
Okay.
Not ballet, not end of the world.
Byron is skilled in all of those styles of dance as well as a few others that are a little more esoteric. Byron, I know that when you were doing the Sea to Sky dance convention, it was a big event. What was the attendance at one of your Sea to Sky conventions?
Well, my very first dance convention when I launched it was in the year 2000. I ran it for 10 years, and I got 350 people on the first year, which wasn't break even, and it consistently grew. And at the end at the end of 10 years, it was 3,000. We filled up the Hilton at Metrotown, and we filled up the Holiday Inn totally. Both hotels were to capacity.
Oh, it was at two venues.
No, there was two hotels. We needed two hotels to house the 3,000 people that arrived, and they were there for the weekend. That was the largest dance convention by far that's ever arrived in Canada. Right. It was the first dance convention too in the West Coast Swing outside the U.S. borders. This was the very first one that was certified by the World Swing Dance Council.
And if one went to one of your dance conventions, would a novice be able to participate?
Yeah, every dance convention has a big participant and brand new people with many lessons and lots of practice. And that's why the dance conventions are popular, because you get very few bum steers from the instructors are top class. They're international trainers, they're not local. So the dancers make a lot of progress in very short order.
At what point did you realize that you could actually pull a major dance convention off? Like you're involved in the dance community, and you say, I'd like to start this dance convention. What's the sort of first step in getting a major event like that off the ground?
Well, I think the first thing you do is you find out who the body controlling the competitive part of it is, because there's a lot of competitions going on. That's part of the shows for the whole weekend. These competitors are high-end competitors. They come in from France and England and Russia. And they all arrive from all countries. And so you go to those agencies that control that particular style of dance, and you start working with them, register your company, and then you got to get a hotel, and you're off and ready to go. If you don't know what you're doing, then you hire a director for the event, which I did 2 years in a row. I hired directors that were very well versed in all this, and I just was being taught how to run them. And but I know how to run business. I know how to run people. I know how to make things happen from my business experience and my engineering and my marketing that I took. So I got lots of background on running a business. So I ran it like a business, and it worked. It worked really good. It was the very first sanctioned event by the World Swing Council outside of U.S. borders. This was number one. And that's the thing that they asked me to do, was to get into the immigration departments in Canada and try to figure out how we can run all these instructors arriving from everywhere in the world and not violate the immigration rules for working here. Because you can't.
How did you do that?
Well, the first year I just paid for all the permits, and I got permits. It was about $5,000 extra in cost because I was ignorant on how to do it. But the second year, the World Swing Council director, I worked with her on working with the federal government. We had these dance conventions. This is what I did. This is my contribution. I worked with a lady there who was one of the car dealer's daughter, and she was very, very good to work with. And what we ended up doing is having the dance convention certified by the federal government as an artistic, like movies, the movie industry. And what happens is you don't have problems coming across the border. These people just freely go back and forth. All the instructors would come and go back and forth and don't get checked at the border for working here. But we had to adjust the event a little bit so that it was nothing but a show. And most of these events are that way. They're very showy. They're learning experiences. It's very artistic. Once we had the Sea to Sky Dance Convention registered that way, we never had any problems with immigration anymore or getting across the border, because your dance instructors would come from France or from Holland or from San Francisco, and the border would turn them away. You're missing your instructors. So I resolved that by having this event classified as an artistic point rather than a business point. And then the government, every time you applied to the government, you didn't have to go through immigration papers to get your instructors to come in. You could still pay them, and everything was above board. And now today, going 20 years later after I did that, they're still doing exactly the same thing, but right around the world with every country are doing exactly the same thing. So that idea got well rooted, solved the problem of having dance conventions outside the US border. Now, normally there's about 200 events in the States every year, big conventions. Now there's more than that around the world outside of the US borders. And it all started with the Vancouver Sea to Sky Dance Convention. With me, that didn't know much about this. I knew a lot about dancing, but didn't know how to run a convention. But I had really good people around me, and I did learn very quickly.
Now you're saying 200 are West Coast swing events, or does that include country and ballroom and the whole?
Well, normally these most of these places in those days used to run country and West Coast swing together.
John, I have some modest competence in West Coast swing and country two-step in particular.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. What is country? I'm trying to visualize what is country dancing. Like West Coast swing, I can. I'm sure I've seen that, but when you say country, what would I look for? Urban cowboy, John Travolta?
No, you look at country singers. When I ran my dance convention with the 3,000 people for the weekend, I ran a ballroom, I ran a country room, I ran a West Coast swing room, I ran a Latin room, and I rented a Lindy room. So we had 5 ballrooms where different things were being taught, and that drew a very large crowd.
You brought in the cream of the crop of dancers and instructors. Yeah. And how were these people to deal with? Did you have to have a limo pick them up at the airport, or were they?
Man, I learned how to use limos, and it's cheaper than taxis. We would designate a very personable instructor from Vancouver to go to the airport and pick them up in limos and try to time it. We organized that all for them and get them all back into the hotel really quickly. And we also send them back the same way.
I've told John that you know just about everybody in the dance community in North America. And are you still in touch with these people?
I am. Right. I do from time to time because I see them around, but this last year I haven't been in touch with hardly anybody.
Well, nobody's been in touch with anybody.
Yeah.
COVID-19 thing.
It's a bit of a shock to be going to 6 or 8 dance conventions a year, dancing 5 times a week, running my own event every week, dance for fun, to all of a sudden, like a light switch, it just all stopped overnight. And that was my social life and what I had picked up from my retirement years to stay alert and stay healthy was to deeply involve myself and continue on with the dance world. I'm looking forward to getting back to it.
You used to run a weekly event just at a local venue, and you must have done that because I attended dozens of them myself. You must have done that
years.
For how long?
20 years.
Wow.
And on the anniversary of the 20th year, I decided to retire it. Not because I didn't love it, I just loved doing this, but I wanted to get my own dancing in order and I'm not organized, but just enjoy the dance world. And for the last 3 years, that's what I've been doing is dance conventions.
John came out to visit me once and I took him to, was it a country dance?
I was just going to ask you who organized that one, because I remember that. I don't think, No, I don't think it was country, but I don't know. I can't remember.
Were we moving around a room? I think we were moving around a room. So it was
Yes, everybody was moving around the room, and I felt like I was at grade 8 at a dance again because I didn't know how to dance, so I was just up against the wall. So I was Mr. Wallflower for the whole thing.
You guys make the best dance people in the world because you don't have any bad habits. You have nothing. So it's a start from scratch. It's wonderful.
Byron, it's the same thing in the dog world. If somebody says, I've never had a dog before, thank God.
Yeah. Already included.
I say it's a lot fewer knots in the leash that I have to untie.
Yes, you got it right on.
Any dog owner knows what that means.
Yep. You got to put the owner on the leash, actually, and train them.
Well, that's, what I do is, and I'm going to maintain this, but basically the first 2.5 hours that I spend with somebody, it's got nothing to do with working with their dog. The dog knows how to do it all.
Yeah.
It's helping the person understand the concepts, and then you can get your hands on the dog before you get everybody all confused.
Yeah.
So Byron, one of the questions that I had a little bit earlier was, you mentioned like the first convention was about 300 and then it just climbed over the years. I was wondering, did the ratio between beginners that showed up, intermediate and advanced change over the years?
No, it never changes. Right? It never changes. 50% of the people are brand new and the others are a whole bunch of from beginners to very advanced people.
Right.
The lessons that you put on during the weekend, they address the beginners, many beginners lessons, many intermediate lessons, many advanced lessons. And then there's super advanced stuff for the pros that come in from all over the world. They compete with one another. And they also have lessons, and they're doing private lessons. We organize all the private lessons for the instructors.
Yeah.
So they want to get a private lesson, can go get a private lesson for an hour. Yeah.
What about the attitude of the genders? Usually it's a little harder to convince a man to go out and learn how to dance than it is a woman. And ironically, it's the same thing in dog training. It's a lot harder for a wife to convince the husband that the dog needs training than you'd think. But were the male participants open-minded, or did you have to turn them around?
In the dance world, I would say that's not true, because the dance world is all about lead and follow. It's not about learning the dance. It's about how good you are at leading through your hands. And the connection on your hands is only like about 4 ounces. It's not very much. People see this all going on. They go, oh, people must be really heavy connected. No, they're just dance. It's so light so that you can tell that partner which way to go. And they know right away what's coming up all the way through the dance. So the guys want to have that skill, and the ladies want to have the skill of registering those leads. And when you train people on this particular aspect, they become good dancers right away. As soon as they learn the connection, they can talk through that connection, and that's how they know which way to move and what to do. And that is why the men are there thirsty for learning how to make this connection happen, so that when they take a lady to the floor and dance, they get a good response. And everybody's trying to dance with better quality dancers or with achieved dancers, because that's the joy of it. There's no lid to how much you can learn. You're always going to be learning.
And what about a limit to when you should start?
It doesn't really matter, even if you have no rhythm, if you don't know anything about music, it doesn't really matter. I've seen students come into my operations and for 10 to 15 years make virtually no progress, but they love it so much. They all end up the same way. They end up good dancers.
Yeah.
Some of them take 15, 16 years.
But if you saw somebody like me walk into your studio, my age, would you go, oh crap, here we go?
No, I love the beginners. I love the beginner part of it. And anybody that walks into my place, I want those beginners to start feeling the excitement of the dance and the lead and follow stuff. I do that right away.
Paul, you and I went to the same high school. Do you remember back in high school, part of phys ed was a dance class? We started with square dancing. And you can just imagine a bunch of teenagers being forced to do something in their mind is totally archaic. It was a blast inside of 20 seconds. That's the way I remember it. Do you remember it, Paul?
I don't remember the square dancing specifically, John.
That's still going on, John. It's exactly the same. And the square dancing conventions are probably, I would say they're the biggest, largest conventions of all the dance world. When they put on a square dance convention,
Is that right?
2,000 or 3,000 people turn up right away. They're asking for 10 times more dance floor to be rented than any other dance form. And these,
Is
but
that
most
right?
of these are people that are getting older, and this is actually part of their exercise and part of their fun.
Yeah.
A lot of them have RVs and they travel around and they go to all these square dances everywhere.
That'd be. I think that's a great
make friends.
idea. I just realized that feeling that I had back in my adolescence impacted me. I can't. It might have been about 10 years ago in my Rotary Club. I was on the committee for the Christmas party, and I wanted to do something different. And so it was a Western theme, and I hired some instructors to teach our totally left-footed group to a square dance. And Byron, I mean, people were drinking, of course. It was probably not like a typical, but they were just there to have fun. And the female instructor was rigid about doing everything perfectly. And she had a horrible time, but it was probably the most memorable Christmas party we've ever had because it was so much fun.
Yeah. Most instructors are pretty good. There aren't very many bad instructors out there in the dance world because that's why everybody does it, for fun. That's what's behind it all. It's a fun thing to do. Very few smokers, very few drinkers. Everybody comes there sober, and people meet one another. We've had people get married at my events. 3 individuals got married at my events over the years, and it's just awesome. It's a fun thing to do, and you can do it into your late years. And I can tell you from my own experience, it will keep you way more healthy because the neurons in your brain, they're still growing even if you're 70. You still get new neurons developing if you try using your brain. But if you don't use your brain, they don't grow, and then you just become senile. So if you do dancing, it forces you to do motor performance. It forces your body to move your feet and stay in tune with the lead and follow, and your brain grows from that. So I can tell you from my own experience that the reason I'm in really good health is because I danced for 30 years. There's nothing more I did that was more important than dancing.
Paul, you will have to introduce, you probably should have done it before this interview. You probably should have introduced Byron to the virtual reality dance.
I showed Byron this the other day.
Yep.
And he knew right away what it was.
Oh yeah, I know what they are. Yeah.
But it's the there's something I think one of the things on it is VR Dance Studio, and it's a good cardio. I mean, I got it for cardio to do exactly what you said, stimulate the mind and get the body moving, and it's been very, very good for that. But the dance studio, you kind of like you're up against. You can see somebody and you mirror what they do, and it does get the neurons absolutely firing. So I have a very low but not horrible grasp of how to dance to one of Lady Gaga's songs. But it's an interesting experience. It'd be interesting to see what you thought of it if you gave it a shot.
If I get Byron over here, John, I'll slap that VR headset on him and he will be amazed.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that would be a new experience. I'm familiar with virtual reality, but I've never really done anything with it. But yeah, I can imagine things could be done with dancing with it. I can just imagine that. Yeah.
I resisted getting that thing. John sent that to me. That's his version 1 of it. He has version 2. I resisted getting into it for the longest time. And when he sent it out to me and I put it on, Byron, it was like, this is what I've been missing. It really is quite amazing. But you know, when you two were talking about the square dancing, it reminded me that at Byron's events, although he didn't have square dancing, he did have line dancing, which is sort of a take on.
That's what I thought you meant by not square dancing, but when you said country, I didn't know the term. But line dancing was what I was visualizing, which I have done, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't need a partner for that, so that takes some of the complication out of it. You know.
Right.
just learn it.
Which-
Then I started in line dancing 30 years ago. I went to a dance. I got brave enough to go there, and I looked at it from the outside in. Got back in my car and went home again. I didn't make it into the dance hall. I said, can't do that. Too complicated. So I did go back again a couple weeks later, and I learned how to do one line dance, and they taught it for 2 weeks in a row. And I thought, oh, this is wonderful. But on the third week, they didn't teach that anymore. They taught a new one. And I'm going, a new one? I just learned the old one. And then I found out there's a different line dance for every song. And I said, oh, my brain just won't handle all this stuff. I got to find something else. But I did start in line dancing, actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, strange. But I thought I'll never make it through learning a different bunch of steps to every single song. But line dancing, man, you learn how to turn and spin, and it's just a tremendous advantage if you have line dancing in your background. It'll really help you do all the other dancing.
So did you go from line dancing to country and then West Coast swing?
Yeah, about 2 years, and then I went into West Coast swing, and then that dominated after that. Yeah.
Circling back to you organizing things, that and this is totally selfish on my part here, because before COVID, I used to do kind of like a one-man show for that I put together, but it was all organized by an organization. And there's that border problem if it's over in the U.S. As well, because if you're earning a fee as opposed to what they might frame as a gratuity at the border, they could send you back, and you can't go, well, no, I'm just visiting, because if they Googled your name, I'm going to come up. So that's an issue. So I probably will just stick to Canada, but I don't know how you do it. It's Byron, it's such an overwhelming task to organize something even that simple.
It takes 4 months full time getting ready for it.
It does, yeah. And now yours is far more complex. Mine is just 2 hours one evening, but still,
it never stopped. Every year, it just got bigger and bigger. So it was still taking the 4 to 5 months all the time out of my life.
Yeah.
And, but I don't miss it, and I do. I'm an honorary member of the Cedar Dance Convention that got moved to Seattle. When one of the teachers that came up to my last event liked what he saw and bought it from me, and but I had to move it to Seattle and organize the hotel for him. So I got all that done. He's still operating out of that same hotel, and everything's working just fine. So the Cedar Dance Convention started in 2000. It's been around a long time, still going.
Well, were you, was it a one-man show to put together, or did you have help? And you still
board of directors, 6 board of directors, and divide all the work up evenly amongst the 6 board members.
And there was
those
still
board of directors come with a lot of talent and a lot of background, a lot of connection. Half of them are out of the States, and half of them are from here.
Is that what the advantage was? It was, well, of course, sharing the work, but the reach, I guess, I never even thought of that, is that having a board of directors to kind of expand your contact reach.
Yeah.
The Kevin Bacon concept.
It's just to be able to organize it properly so that people will want to come to it. So what do you do to set all this up so actually 3,000 people will come to it? That's a challenge.
And on the board, were these business people, or were they professional dancers?
Professional dancers.
And that would have been part of the draw then, knowing that some of these people were involved in the event.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, all the you pick top people from this area as much as you can, and then fill it in with everywhere else. So usually the States.
You're a very positive man, Byron, and you don't seem worn down by anything. How do you maintain your positive mental attitude?
I have mentors that I follow that are all the same way, and I'm learning that. There's lots of people. I got a list of them. I maintain my websites in a list, say what it's about, and then I put the website there, and I send those to people that ask me this kind of question. I send that list to them so they can see some of the stuff that I've screened out and follow.
Okay.
Well, I think we're born with a magnificent mind, but we don't actually always use it, and sometimes our doubt is our biggest problem. But if you have a lot of people around you that are experienced and knowledgeable, you pick it up. Yep.
And what was your childhood like? I actually met your mother before she
Yeah.
passed on. She was a wonderful woman. So,
Yeah.
how was your childhood?
Well, I think, I was talking to my son this morning when I saw my grandchildren, I do that once a week. And I said this to him this morning, that one of the secrets in life, one of the really big secrets in life, is to listen to your parents. Because no one is more loyal to you than your parents to start with. They have your best interests at heart all the time. What happens is, if you learn from them, you miss the potholes that you would normally fall in, and that leaves you with a lot of capacity to do other things, and you get better and better because you're following a pattern, and they've got the experience that you don't have, so you become wise sooner. So I've done that. I had a tremendous amount of respect and love for my parents, both of them. My dad was highly intellectual and lived with integrity, and my mom was just the go-getter like me. She was elected to the school board. She was on the board of directors for the Salvation Army. She was doing all these things. And both of these people just never gave up on their projects. They worked with seniors development for helping seniors in the East Kootenays. And they actually received the Order of Canada for the work they did. And my mother was the only one alive when that happened a few years ago. And, they had citizenship year awards and all this other stuff. But my mom didn't like Morgentaler because she said, you can't use abortions for having birth control. She said, that's not good. So Morgentaler was on the list and she had won the thing, but she found out that Morgentaler was on the list, and she had the Governor General arrive here for dinner and told her that she could stuff her. She didn't want anything to do with the Order of Canada as long as Morgentaler was on that list. And I'm thinking, most people would say, what are you doing, Mom? No, I was so happy with her. She made a decision based on her integrity and what she believed in. And that's what I grew up with all my life. My parents were really unusual.
Byron, I also was fortunate in that I have a lot of respect for my parents, and I think I had a pretty good childhood. John, I know your childhood was a little bit harder, wasn't it?
Different, yeah. Well, yeah, it was. I'd say well-intentioned, but misguided in a lot of ways. I think what Byron says about listening to your parents. There's a lot of parents shouldn't be listened to.
Yes.
I think in life, when you meet somebody or you're with somebody, a friend or a family member, you have to observe, because there's usually a race between ignorance and stupidity in life. And when you can figure out which horse is winning, then you can decide how carefully you're going to listen.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're young, your instincts go against it. Mm-hmm. Like you could have the best parents or even mentors, and if you're not, I don't know, it seems different now. Like I get what you're saying, Byron. If you've got the right people in your life and they've handled you in a way that you understand, you need to listen. Mm-hmm. Hearing them's not enough. That would save a lot of trouble in life.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the growing pains, but it's a skill set that I think some parents have in developing that kind of relationship, and some don't.
Yeah. So I go back in time with my folks. The main person driving the family was my grandmother. She came here when she was 30 years old with 6 kids. Her husband was a member of the Parliament in England, and he died at 45. So she sold the brick house and came to BC in 1929, 1 year before the Depression. So that woman was challenged beyond. And I was going to say, your method about what you mentioned about your growing up wasn't so easy, but you're very successful. And all those challenges, as part of that success picture, you were driven to that success because you had those challenges. Because we don't learn a damn thing when things are going well. When things are going crooked and sideways, that's when your growth happens.
Well, you're not wrong, but I think that for you, it was good and that you attribute that to your success. And now you're telling me that if yours wasn't good, you should attribute that to your success. There must be more to it.
Oh, there is. There's lots more to it.
Yeah.
But I think
yeah,
if
there are
God
lots of things.
is loved and there's discipline, there's love in the discipline. They grow up with bigger brains. It's proven, scientifically proven now, that if a child is satisfied when they're age 1 to 6, if they're satisfied and happy and they're loved, their brains are bigger than people that aren't that way. And it's just the neurons in the size of your brain in your head, trillions and trillions of neurons that are in there, and they're fancy little branches that they have connecting with one another and making decisions from between the neurons. That goes on through your whole life. It doesn't stop. But if your parents are good and they've given you this, you make a lot more progress. I was very shy when I was right up to about grade 11. Very, very shy. I wasn't outspoken or anything at all. And I think I opened up because I found out things about myself, and I started getting more confidence in myself. And by the time I was in grade 12, I was scoring high on all the science programs. I took grade 13 and scored really high. Took an engineering degree, took a marketing degree in the end, because little old me, what's so special about me? Well, there's nothing. I have this brain just like everybody else does. And I'm a living example about how it didn't look like it was going to go very far. And all of a sudden it just blossomed. And it's partly parents, and it's also, you have to get a hang on this yourself, that you can do it. And once you get that confidence in yourself, there's nothing that can stop you. Yeah.
Byron, we wanted to bring you on because of your life experience, and you've shared some of that with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would also be interesting, if you don't mind, if I ask you about relationships. You've been married a couple of times.
Yeah.
John's been married a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've lived common law, but I've never been married.
Well, I have good relations with everybody. I became a parenting instructor. One of the good things that came out of the first divorce was I didn't know what I was doing with the kids when I had them. So I took a parenting class, and I took another one, and I took another one. And I just loved these parenting classes. I was having a great time with it. Won some awards for that, and ended up with doing all the interviews on the news when the TV and everything happened. Whenever anybody had an interview, I was the one they brought in, because I was having really great results. So I did this, took my parenting papers to teach in the schools, parenting, and it was because I wanted to do a good job with my kids. That paid off. And the connections I made with all of those professors and people that helped counsel me through the first divorce was substantially helped me. And to this day, I have an excellent relationship with all three of my kids, all three of them.
And your exes, are they still around, or are they?
Oh, my first wife lives in Edmonton. I really never figured out why she moved up there. And I mean, you can count forever the reasons for divorces, but I mean, if you're having problems and you don't get help, then it's your own fault. And with me, I think I was pretty strong. I was doing really good business.
Frequently, men define themselves by the work that they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that a part of it at all?
No, it wasn't business, because she liked the fact I was a boss at Woodridge for 22 years, and she was the wife of the boss. Yeah. So I was in middle management there, and everything was going good. There's always two sides to the coin. And I kind of addressed the things that I was doing that didn't work, and I was not a good leader. I had my mindset right, and I had my head on straight, but I wasn't doing the right things. And so I was like asleep at the wheel. That's what I call it.
Okay.
Running on autopilot. So I look back on it, I could have made some big changes there, and it would have probably worked better.
Yeah, we all look back on relationships and think about, what we could have and should have done. I'm certainly guilty of that.
But I'm so much in favor of freedom to think. And even after watching Ben Carson this week talk about how the brain develops in young kids, his podcast on that thing was bloody fantastic. I learned brand new things in there. Those neurons, when they fire and communicate through all their little branches and everything, it's just a bloody miracle that goes on. But if you have freedom to think, that's where creativity comes from. It comes from those neurons sending flash memos across space because they're not connected. Just the tree branches are out there waving and doing their thing. But the information crosses from one and they say, yes, I got the information. And that's how creativity happens.
You keep sharp by watching documentaries too, don't you?
I'm loaded up with them all the time. Yeah, I love documentaries. And well, I do hook on to certain people. Right now, I think Ben Carson will become the next president of the United States in 2024.
There's so much controversy around all of that that everybody has a different opinion.
But I think this Ben Carson guy is going to do it. He's put his name in for the hat already, and he's going to run. And I think he's going to get in.
Okay.
He's a unifier. Yeah.
Okay. John and I had a discussion on critical thinking and cognitive biases. And I mentioned to you once about a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. And it's really all about self-awareness and understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, the world changes if we change ourselves one at a time. It doesn't change any other way. It doesn't start from the top down. It starts from the bottom up every time. But if you have freedom to think, people can pull themselves out of poverty. They can progress with their lives.
I have a question because I don't really understand that point. When you say freedom to think, I'm going to ask you to elaborate a little bit, because I might argue that we have more freedom to think now than we have ever had in history. And the problem is not the amount of freedom there is to think, it's the amount of people who know how to think critically. That's the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. We did a podcast on exactly on critical thinking and cognitive biases.
Yeah. If I had the time and the energy and the funds to support it, I would try and get built into our kids' educational system, starting at kindergarten, learning how to think critically and know be able to mention something and have the kid go logical fallacy, why, and be able to define it at a kindergarten level and just keep that going. Do you know when we get exposed to that now? Never, unless you go to university and only in the science or philosophy programs, or you decide self-study.
Yeah.
That's the core, in my view, of all the problems in the world. Even if you've got that lower IQ that you were talking about, Byron, a lower IQ with a little bit of that understanding is better than one without it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. It's true. What you're saying is just straight truth. Yep. Okay. And there is a better time ahead someday in our human progress, because when these things will end up floating to the top eventually someday. And that's the only time we're ever going to have peace in the world, is with all of the countries moving in that direction, where there's freedom for people to pull themselves up and get out of poverty.
I just want to say, Byron, we really appreciate you being on the show. It's been very interesting. Great.
But I actually learned a few things from John today, so that was interesting.
John?
There's some very good points there, really good points.
So thank you. And
John, you have always been my mentor for the internet. I thank you for all those years of taking care of the Sea to Sky electronics and internet, because that was part of the success of the thing. You're one of the bright light bulbs that helped me make the thing happen.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yep.
John, do you have any other questions for Byron?
No, just echo your sentiments. Thanks, Byron. Appreciate it. It was nice meeting you.
So when you come to Vancouver, you're going to take some dance lessons. I'm going to make sure of that. we're going to take you out on the town, and you're going to
imagine the headlines the next day: Byron Starr mysteriously retires.
Go to a Lindy dance. Lindy Hop is really big and lots of fun. All ages go there. And
Lindy Hop is very energetic, John.
Yeah. Okay.
But
anyway, look, I enjoyed meeting you here. Actually, that was very nice, and thank you for setting all this up. It's a lot of work.
You've been very accommodating. We appreciate it.
Very nice to be on. Thank you. Be respected and listened to. Yep.
Thanks for listening. Check out their YouTube channel or go to www.twooldguystalking.com. See you next time.